Hey, Chris Manning here for the Locked on Cavs podcast. Coming up on today's show, we're going to talk about Cavs wings because we're going to talk about 60-cent wings, basically Cavs wings that they have on affordable contracts that are still useful in some ways, but we're going to talk about how they could improve and also set the stage for why this is going to be an important thing for the Cavs going into next season. That is all coming up today on Locked on Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network.
It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everyone? I'm Chris Manning, one of the co-hosts of Locked on Cavs. Joining me, as always, is my partner in crime, the man who thought this wonderful Summer League hat was a big dog brand hat like I was a 65-year-old man. It's Evan Dammarell. Evan, how are you?
Good, Ben. Hey, full disclosure, I ran Husky as a child, so I wore Big Dog
Same.
as a kid. So it's a very of its time. Like, you grew up a 90s kid if you know what Big Dog is, or if you know what the Big Dog stores were at the mall where they had the giant dog house in the middle of it that was also a fitting room, I think. I'm just having a little bit of like nostalgia thinking about it. But Chris, it's technically Wednesday, and I'm going to ask you this question as always because it's Wing Wednesday for most, and I don't think it is at B-Dubs. It's Tuesdays and Thursdays there. But are you a boneless or a boned-in guy?
Bone in.
Oh, I don't go either way. But if I had to pick, I prefer both. I'm not a snob either, but I prefer boneless because I don't like my hands and face feeling messy every time I have to eat one. I'd rather just enjoy my dinner and not look like a total slob, because I already look like a total slob before Sweat Block, but you'll hear more about them later on in the show. But it's Wednesday, and we're talking wings about the Cavs, 60-cent wings, if you will, and we're lumping Isaac Okoro into this one just because he's on a rookie scale contract, so he's technically cheap. But the Cavs might have to comb the market for some cheap wings, but they might already have some on the roster to begin with. So, Chris, I kind of already teed off for you and hit the ball. So, Isaac Okoro.
Well, let's
how do you feel about him? How do you feel about him?
Turn back. Let's just hit reverse for like 1 second.
We haven't tossed it in the sauce. We just have a hot wing.
Yeah, the wing has been is being prepared, right? Like we've acquired the meat here. And now we set the stage. But if you're joining us for the first time, we're Locked on Cavs, daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast, 3 days a week right now in the off season. If you're watching us on YouTube and you're saying, who are these guys? I run FearTheSword.com with Evan, SB Nation's Cavs site. I also write at places like Time Magazine, Cleveland Magazine. I've written places like Vice as well in the past. You can find my Twitter handle right there. It's CWM Writes. Well, it's more like there. And then, Evan, just in case people are not familiar with who you are, and why you why you have this nice looking apartment behind you. What's your bona fides?
Well, I cover the Cavs for Redacted. More about that on Thursday, actually. Be paying attention to that. I'll have some big news to drop about that soon. But other than that, like Chris said, I run the show with him at Fear the Sword. We have an excellent team of writers where we talk about the Cavs, and Chris lets me use it as my personal sounding board for my frustrations. I used to be with Forbes, but I think Chris has taken over for me there at this point, which is pretty neat.
Forgot. I also do write it. I write it for. I like money. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, no, we both do. That's why we're the first septillion. We've got up a whole million at this point, or something like that. We're a wealthy podcast, but yeah, the nice backdrop. This is my new digs, but yeah, I'm Evan Dammarell. You can find me on Twitter at @AmNotEvan. You may know me as the guy who hates Colin Sexton. That is nothing further from the truth. I love Colin quite a bit. I think he's a fun player, and he's the most dynamic player in Cleveland's young core at the moment. But enough about that, Chris. Let's toss the wings and some sauce. What flavor sauce should we give Isaac Okoro? I'm feeling like something a little bit of a bite to it. Like, you think it's like subtly smooth at first, and then it just hits you, and you start getting the sweats. You start regretting your decision. Your tongue feels like it's blistering up. I don't know. If I was Sean Evans right now, I'd probably have like a nice spread of sauces in front of us.
Are you not like a hot sauce guy?
Full disclosure, I'm a total weenie when it comes to hot food.
I just put a bunch of
learn
hot
this
sauce.
in my life. I
put a bunch of hot sauce. Just I didn't know that I just ate, but before we started recording, because I love a nice hot sauce. So like when you say hot food and you're talking about like a wing you regret eating, I'm thinking like that's enjoyable. Like I like a nice like Caribbean jerk, right? Like I like a little, like if we're talking like beat-ups, I like a little Asian zing. You know what I mean? Like I like a little.
Those aren't
on my
hot to me. I'm talking like mango habanero. I regretted getting mango habanero at beat-ups once. My mouth just didn't enjoy it at all. I started coughing and sweating the whole time I was eating it. But I powered through because I paid for those 10 wings, and damn it, I'm going to eat them because I'm not going to take them home and reheat them because I don't want to put myself through it a second time.
Right. So I would say Isaac is kind of like something a little above, like maybe like a spicy barbecue of some kind, right? Like kind of like a standard, kind of like a basic kind of thing on the surface, but has a little more to it than you would think. And I say this is someone who is like probably higher on Isaac Okoro. That I think out of like anyone that we talked to about the Cavs, I might be the highest on Isaac Okoro. I don't know if we've ever like actually had this sort of discussion, but I tend to think that I'm outrageously high on him because I think his defense is already incredible. Like you can look at like him getting scored on, people say like, oh, like the numbers, whatever. On-ball defense is very hard to gauge by metrics. Isaac is a defender that I think is already defending high-level guys at a very good level. He's really, really strong. He's added muscle. He's really skilled. He's tenacious. He's got that short-term memory where this stuff is not really like sticking to him. Like if he gets scored on, like he is not going into a hole. Like he's going to come back at you. He's one of those defenders that attacks guys. I think in summer league it wasn't like blowing the doors off impressive. I don't think he was, like a flashing like a whole other level on the offensive end. He probably left a little underwhelmed in that regard, but he showed some stuff as a cutter. He showed some stuff as a guy that can slash. He's just, to me, like a prototypical modern, really interesting wing player. I love Isaac Okoro. I think, maybe in theory you would have liked to get a guy who could shoot a little better this offseason. You could have hoped that maybe his three-point stroke isn't where you want it to be. I think that's a very fair concern. It's going to define what his ceiling is as a player in a lot of ways, but I think he's really, really good. I am absolutely like all in on Okoro on every front. I think that guy is potentially just an incredible player.
Before I give my thoughts on Isaac, are you as high on Isaac Okoro as Justin Rowan is on Darius Garland?
No, because no one is as high in anything as Justin Rowan is on the Cavs player he currently likes at the most at the moment.
Justin Rowan is high on his own supply, and his supply is the Cleveland Cavaliers for sure.
Little NFT action for my boy,
Yeah, just a little bit of something there. But I agree with you with Isaac. I think talking to you on a day-to-day basis, doing this show 5 days a week, my episode count is growing quite a bit, and we talk the Cavs 24/7, 365. We're prepping episodes as often as we can. So you've sold me on Isaac quite a bit because I know like big wings who play defense provide some form of playmaking, who have a little bit of twitchiness to them and a lot of upside of like long wingspans like Isaac. Like they do something to you and they do something for you. Isaac, I think in a vacuum is a really good player, and I also just like this fit with Cleveland. I've always been high on him when Cleveland had the fifth pick in the 2020 draft. I think I penciled in Isaac Okoro as my odds-on favorite. I know a lot of people were clamoring for Obi Toppin, and there's a lot of Obi Toppin smoke at the time, but I felt a little validated when it kind of more or less turned out that Isaac was always Cleveland's guy, especially because he's JB's guy. But like his defense as a rookie was so impressive, and all things considered, you gotta look at the gauntlet he's gone through. Like he's defended James Harden, Kevin Durant, LeBron James, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Luka Doncic. He spent so much time defending so many talented wing players in this league that he plays hard. Yeah, like you said, like the offensive counting stats necessarily aren't there, but there's a lot of potential as well. He's hesitant to take threes, but I think that's starting to get better. He's looking more confident, and I know I wrote this long piece about Evan Mobley not taking too much stock from counting stats in Summer League. And like, yeah, Isaac's are pretty similar to last year's, but there's a different vibe to his game when you watch him between now and then just playing these exhibition games in Vegas. Like, I'm really high on his upside. I know people ask JJ Outlaw, is he a 2? Is he a 3? And I liked JJ's answer when he said he's just a basketball player. I think Isaac has a little bit of that switchability and fluidity at his position where he can play 2-3. Yeah. He can play like he could be the third string point guard, possibly fourth string point guard for Cleveland.
Well, notably he can defend ones is the thing here.
Yeah,
right? Like,
that
notably,
too.
Isaac is going to be able to defend ones. You can see him if the Cavs are in a position where like they're playing a team whose best creator on the other team is a point guard, you can say, Isaac, you go defend him.
Mm-hmm.
And then if there's not guys that you're super worried about their playmaking ability, hey, Darius, you can go hide over here. Colin, you can go hide over here. I think just the question, I think it really just comes down to his 3-point shooting. It just, that is his viability. If he's going to be max potential guy, like I'm not saying max contract, I'm saying like his max
his
potential,
apex,
whatever you want to define that is, he's going to need to get to like at least like league average 3-point shooting. And I also think like the other thing to watch for him this year, if we're saying like, I think when we talk about Dylan Windler, when we talk about Cedi Osman, there's improvement stuff we're going to talk about. The other thing I would really watch with Isaac is not necessarily his handle, like when he's running a pick and roll, but when he's attacking closeouts. There is so much potential for Isaac to get easy buckets and like power his way to like 8, 10, 12 points on a given night, because he is so strong and has such a good first step that if his handle is tight and he can attack a sloppy closeout and then crush a dunk on an unsuspecting big who's rotating late, that is a legitimate skill he has. You saw him do it last year to Nikola Jokic, the league's freaking MVP, who's like a better defensive player than I think people realize. He did it in Summer League. It's like a thing that he has in his bag. And even if he's not ever going to do like the most crazy stuff in the world, like on offense, like I think there's a path to him to being a really useful offensive player. Evan, I'm thinking about like the Cavs players that are gonna, I think, potentially dictate the season in a lot of ways next year. I think Darius is the clear one. I think Isaac might be 2 for me.
Ooh.
In that, I think he is. It's either 2 or 3. This next season is all about the young core. And Evan Mobley obviously is going to have a lot of say in what goes on. I don't want to discount Colin Sexton either. But in this preliminary list that I have made, I think Isaac is 2 for me.
Who do you have at 3 before I can either counterpoint?
Probably Mobley, just because like I think like high pick expectations. Colin, I just kind of feel like I know what he is, and like maybe he hits another leap and changes some of this. But I think we're going to be paying a lot of attention to Mobley, and that's just, and this is also in context of like I think the Cavs are still trying to figure out what they are and what their identity is. And Okoro is a guy that like is still, I think, more malleable in ways that we don't fully understand it. And Darius is just going to have an opportunity to like do a lot of stuff that's going to be really interesting.
No, I agree with you. Okay, so I'm going to have him at 3, but I agree with your thought process where I have Darius as a clear-cut 1 because he built upon a lot of that momentum in his rookie season where he showed flashes of potential. Now I need to see him stay consistently healthy and show me that this is sustainable. So there's a lot of factors going into Darius, a lot of like variables and questions. Evan Mobley for me, I think is just his upside is so incredible that I want to see what the Cavs have with him, because I wrote about this in my piece for Fear the Sword today. Like, he has such a strong foundation of just so many interesting wrinkles and assets and abilities to his game that I'm intrigued to see what happens. And ditto for Isaac, like the playmaking development towards the end of last season was an interesting thing. And I think the Cavs kind of playing to the strengths of that and trying to encourage that in Summer League and also encourage him as a shooter is something I really want to see more of. Colin could really skyrocket up this list if he changes his shot profile dramatically, where you wrote about this for a while ago, and I wrote about this in his player review, where Colin's offense would be a lot easier if he takes more threes. And if he does that and he takes more threes than he does twos, and he just kind of changes his shot profile and diet, like he would skyrocket up the list for me in terms of just intrigue. But at the same time, like you said, until he does that, we know what he is. And then Jared Allen, we know what he is at this point. They're paying him this money. But yeah, before we go to the break, though, do you think Isaac can defend for his long term? It's a yes or no question.
Yeah. If he had strength,
I do too.
I think that's the caveat. If he's like as strong as I think he is, then yes.
Yeah, he's really going to have opponents sweating on the offensive side of the ball when Isaac is locking them out on defense. And if they don't want to show their fear in the eyes of Isaac Okoro, they might want to use today's sponsor, Sweat Block. Hey guys, so there are a few things in life that are just not fun to talk about. One of them is excessive sweating. You know, when you're sweating through your shirts for no reason, it's embarrassing, right? Some of you may know that I personally have dealt with this. When I speak in public or record a podcast or plug in my phone with the sound on, I can't help but sweat through my shirt.
It was my computer thing.
Listen, I know this isn't life and death, and there are much worse problems in the world, but let's be honest. In the moment, it feels like a big deal. Nobody likes to pit out during an important speech, interview, a first date, or God forbid, the #1 Cleveland Cavaliers podcast on YouTube. Subscribe to us now. I'd much
Smash
not rather
that subscribe button.
hit that notification bell, and I'd much rather not worry about that or excessive sweating, so that's why I use Sweat Block antiperspirant wipes. Sweat Block is stronger and more effective than most clinical antiperspirants. You simply apply it at night before bedtime, go to bed, and the next morning you wake up, wash, and go about your day without worrying about sweat. Guaranteed. I know this will sound too good to be true, but I literally only have to use Sweat Block once or twice a week, and it keeps me dry the whole time. No more pinning out, no more picking my shirts based on what will hide sweat better. If you or someone you love is dealing with this, you have to check out Sweat Block or recommend it to them. You can get it today for 20% off at sweatblock.com with promo code LOCKEDON or at Amazon or CVS. But you can only get the 20% off deal at sweatblock.com using promo code LOCKEDON. I checked today because they sent us a little sample. I'm loving it so much that I'm just going to start stocking my medicine cabinet with Sweat Block because as a sweaty guy, I just can't even anymore, and it's just too good to be true.
Also want to tell you about our friends at Theragun. Theragun is the handheld percussive therapy device that releases your deepest muscle tension with a simple percussive blast. It is scientifically calibrated combo of depth, speed, and power, and it's as quiet as an electric toothbrush. The Gen 4 Theragun doesn't just feel good. It gets to the source of the pain by releasing tension using Theragun's signature percussive therapy, which goes 60% deeper than vibration alone. Whether you want to treat your muscle tension from working out, an injury that you're dealing with is bothering you, or just the stress of everyday life getting you down, there's no substitute for the Theragun Gen 4. Theragun is trusted by 250 professional sports teams like Real Madrid. Evan, what league does Real Madrid play in?
La Liga.
There we go. Elite athletes like Paul George, DeAndre Hopkins, Maria Sharapova, hundreds of thousands of customers, and me. Because I'm obviously podcasting, full contact sport. Try Theragun for 30 days starting at $199. Go to therabody.com/lockedon. That is all one word right now and get your Gen 4 Theragun today. That's therabody.com/lockedon. Therabody.com/lockedon. Evan, let's go to Cedi Osman next.
Real quick though, when you said clearly, like, look at me, I'm a podcast host, all I could think of was my text to you and you were going to be a little late because of dinner because your wife made you switch the grain mid meal prep, and I'm like, does she know what we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis? It just made me chuckle that's why I bit my tongue while you're reading the ad reads, and you want people to hear me go like excessively snort into the microphone. But yeah, let's talk about Cedi, the weirdest wing on Cleveland's roster.
So let me ask you this: where are you just at on Cedi right now? Because he comes off a very bizarre season last year, very inconsistent, bench for a while, but he's on an extension. Like it's like his value is certainly, I think, lower than what he's going to be making next season. I think this is the last year before there's a non-guarantee. I guess where you talk. No, you got to talk now. Where are you at on Cedi?
Well, this is not the last year of Cedi's non-guaranteed. The last year of his contract where it's non-guaranteed is the 2023-24 season. So we have a little bit longer the Cedi Osman experience. But yeah, Colin Sexton's mercurial with the fan base, but Cedi Osman, I think, is mercurial with the coaching staff and organization because in theory, what he provides should be good for the team. It's just he believes he should be a gunner when he comes off the bench for Cleveland, where he's just firing away from three. And we talked about this in the beginning of last season where we did player reviews, and hint, we'll be doing a little bit more of those leading up to training camp. But Cedi has peaks and valleys where you'd see him have a very good game or maybe 2 or 3 very good games. And very good in Cedi Osman standards is double-digit points on efficient shooting, some assists, some rebounds, maybe a little bit of good defense, and you just ask for that and you move on. And then he has valleys where he goes 0 for 6 from 3, but he keeps shooting it like Dion Waiters would. It's stuff like that where it's really concerning, and you start to say, okay, I think the Cavs need to kind of pull the hook on him, and I think having Isaac Okoro adds the luxury where they don't need to lean on Cedi so much. So, I think what we really saw the year before Isaac's rookie season was Cedi Osman is not a player you can expect to play 30 minutes a night for you consistently at small forward, because he can absolutely crater your chances of getting into a game, or he can shoot you out of a game as well. And we ran into some problems like that this season because Cedi was playing more with Isaac out. He was asked to play the 4, which I still disagree with. I think they tried to play him at point guard a little bit, which was a weird development, and they experimented, and I don't think it worked. But I just think for Cedi to really be a consistent part of this rotation, and I know this is probably going to make some Cavs fans moan, but I think he's going to be a consistent part of this rotation unless Cleveland suddenly gets a wing upgrade, and I don't think they're going to be able to use Cedi as a trade asset because he was their bargaining chip with the New Orleans Pelicans to try and acquire Josh Hart, and the Pelicans had no interest in acquiring Cedi Osman because of how bad he was at times last season. Like he's tanked his trade value.
I
don't know, man.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I can understand, like, from an empathy, from me, I'm trying to empathize with Cedi a little bit. He comes in 2017, 18, 22, obviously bench guy, doesn't play a ton, just kind of an energy wing, right? Then the next 2 seasons, he starts all but one game, plays about 30 minutes a night both seasons. He's got a pretty big role, and he plays pretty well. So 2018-19 23 season, shoots 42.7% from the field, which isn't great. Shot about league average from 3. The next season, shot about 44% from the field, right around there. 38.3% on 3-point attempts, which was on the same volume per game. Last year, for whatever reason, his numbers cratered. He obviously didn't start. Started 26 of the 59 games he appeared in. Shot 37.4% from the field overall. 30.6 on 5% from 3 on 5.5 attempts per game. Assist and turnover numbers stayed about the same. I think the defensive energy was not quite there where you'd want it to be. I think the thing about Cedi is I can understand how you gave him the contract that you did. I think even at the time I was surprised he has a non-guarantee in it. It didn't really make sense to me that him and his camp would agree to basically just make some like this like tradable, dumpable contract at the end of it if it comes to that. The Cavs are also in a position where like you have to try and rehabilitate him. You don't have the money or the means to go out and get a big improvement here, right? Like you just don't. Maybe you can aggregate his salary into a trade you make down the line. I think that is certainly something that if I'm Kobe Allman, I would expect that he would try to do. It's just that is not. He's kind of dead money at this point. You have to be the team that kind of rehabilitates him to give him a chance. The thing is with Cedi, that if you're the Cavs, you have to look at him and look at his 2019-20 season and say, okay, is there a player there that we can get back to in some way? Like, is this fully broken where like what he was last year is what he is? I don't believe that's really the case. I think there were some attitude issues. I think there were some buy-in issues. I think on the defensive end, I think clearly like was not vibing with JB Bickerstaff. I think there was some annoyance from other teammates with how much he was shooting. I think there is just a guy there where you think that you don't have a ton of other options. You need a guy to do some secondary playmaking. You need a guy to do some 3-point shooting, which he did well 2 years ago and the year before, and historically has been an okay catch and shoot guy. He's a much better as just a catch and shoot slashing secondary playmaker guy, which is largely like kind of what he is with the Turkish national team, where he's been like awesome, right? Like he's been absolutely incredible with the Turkish national team for large stretches. Like there's a useful player there. I tend to think that if you're looking at like the non-Okoro wing option, so we're looking at like Windler, Cedi, Lamar Stevens, maybe like there's a Broderick Thomas or like a Matt Ryan somewhere in there, Falcons quarterback Matt Ryan. I tend to think that if there's a guy that I can talk myself into actually like figuring it out in some way, it might be Cedi Osman, and that might be totally wrong. I am fully prepared to be wrong, but it's just like none of these guys have actually shown you enough, and he's at least had like actual good NBA minutes before. And again, if you're the Cavs and you're looking for wings on 60-cent win night, and you're trying to make just like something taste good, like if the sauce, like you got the wrong, like you wanted like a nice Parmesan garlic, and they gave you like spicy garlic instead, and you're a little like upset about it, but you got to make it work. Cedi
it's me ordering it because I can't handle spice.
Yeah,
and I'm just but I'm too polite to say something to the wait staff, so I just sit there and eat it.
Very Midwest of you, buddy. But
yeah,
like Cedi is the guy that you can look at him and say like, there has been a useful NBA player here before. It got lost last year. We got to like find it, and you have motivation because you don't have any other options. You have to try is the thing. You are dead on, I think, in saying that like you have to try if you're rounding out the rotation for next year. So, like, I think Garland, Sexton, Okoro, Mobley, Nance, Jared Allen, obviously, Ricky Rubio are like sort of like your locks. Kevin Love is in his own like little like no space,
That's
like he's just in his own little like
so far. So
right. We can
I'd say
count.
Kevin is 8.
Yes. Okay, let's say it's 8. You have so many wing minutes you need to fill, and your options are like Dylan Windler,
we'll talk
Cedi
about
Osman,
next
and Lamar Stevens. Like those are your options. Cedi, you have to try them, and Cedi I think is probably going to get first crack because he's a little older and he like is being paid. Well, he's being paid actual money is the thing. Yeah. Dylan Windler is making like $2 million. Lamar Stevens' contract is non-guaranteed and up to before a certain day. Cedi Osman is like locked into lots of money the next 2 seasons.
Yep. And I think if you put truth serum in the Cavaliers, especially JB Bickerstaff, he wants Cedi to play the fundamentals. He doesn't want him to be a gunner from the perimeter. And JB's made it clear. His coaching mantra is if you play hard and you don't, I'm just putting this in my words, actively harm the team, you'll get minutes. And I think Cedi plays hard, but I think those 8th, 9th man minutes are an ideal spot for him because then also if he starts to self-combust on the court, you can pull the hook and maybe put in a Kevin Love or a Lamar Stevens to sop up those minutes that Cedi might be getting as the 8th man because JB goes 8 or 9 deep on his bench some nights. So it's
about there. I think it's like 9 or 10 in the regular season. And the playoff rotation where you get down to 8 or 9 is a whole other thing.
That's true. So at the end of the day, there's certain players that are guaranteed minutes, and Chris laid them all out. And I think there's some fluidity with like Okoro and Nance in that 3 spot, but you do need some type of spacing, and I think Cedi theoretically provides that. Yeah, he's going to gun it sometimes from 3, and I think that's when you pull the hook, and maybe you just kind of keep him on a short leash next season, and you slowly regain trust with the coaches and the coaching staff in general, mostly JB, and you just slowly roll things out and figure it out from there. But I think Cavs fans are going to be upset for the wrong reasons that Cedi Osman's playing. It's almost out of necessity at this point because teams or fans want the Cavs to trade Cedi to get something of value. The Cavs can only get something of value if Cedi Osman goes out there and proves that he's a fundamentally better player than he was last season. And that's just kind of where we're at right now.
Yep. All right, Evan, we got to take another break here, diving into our little ads, our sponsors and whatnot. And I'm going to tell everyone about our friends at Built Bar. Right now, Evan, I don't know if you know this, Built Bar is having a sale. Okay?
Oh.
Yeah. I got an email about this today. I used our code LOCKED15 and the sale they're selling boxes for like $8-9 off. It's their factory sale. You can get grasshopper cookie, peanut butter brownie, raspberry while supplies last. It's like birthday cake was already sold out. There's a ton of great stuff. You can go stock up right now. And look, there's a ton of great, delicious Built Bar flavors. Mint brownie, salted caramel, strawberry, cookies and cream, orange, German chocolate. You can't really go wrong. And if you want to just try Built Bars and you haven't yet, there's a mix box. You're gonna get 2 of each of the 9 flavors, and I guarantee you're gonna like at least 8 of them, if not all 9. Remember, not only are Built Bars the best tasting, they're healthy too. Look, 17 to 18 grams of protein, calories ranging from 130 to 180, 4 to 5 grams of sugar, and only 4 to 5 grams of net carbs. Amazing flavors, all tasty and all healthy. Order today and get that grasshopper cookie, that cookies and cream, an Evan Dammarell staple, an absolute staple over there, orange or whatever it is you like. Built Bar is also the official protein bar of the U.S. track and field team. It's even on the labels now, it's pretty cool. Go to Built.com.
Did you see what they did for BYU football? It was super cool.
Heck yeah, I did. Paying for some walk-ons, you love to see it. With an NIL, you love to see it. NIL, doing good stuff. Go to Built.com, use promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your order. Again, use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com.
Today's episode of Locked On Cavs is also sponsored by BetOnline, the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your sports action. Baseball season is in full swing, and you can track all the action at BetOnline. Get all the latest news, odds, and info for all your sporting needs, including the MLB, the NBA, the NHL, and all of your UFC, MMA action. Before the next pitch, head over to BetOnline on your laptop or mobile device and check out all the great sporting news, sign-up bonuses, and contest information. Do not sit on the sidelines anymore, as this is your chance to get into the game as teams prep for their runs to a championship. Head to their website or use your mobile device to sign up today and receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit, but only if you use the promo code LOCKEDON. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts and the exclusive betting partner of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Evan, let's just wrap on Dylan Willner. We've talked about him a little bit. Obviously, has it been a really tough start for him? Came in the same year as Darius Garland and Kevin Porter Jr. Was picked out of Belmont. Has not totally worked due to injury. Looked a little bit lost a lot of the time last year. I guess I'm just wondering, what do you think is the path to rehabilitate Dylan Willner?
Similar to the Cedi Osman path, I guess, where you kind of see what you have with him. If you can give him, if you're doing 10, 11-man rotations, Dylan is your 10th, 11th man, just to see what he provides in terms of, he's played defense. I think the rebounding numbers at Belmont still jump out. I think that translates to the next level. He's a bigger bodied wing. I know he's super frail and thin, but he has a big frame to begin with. He just needs to fill into it. You slowly bring him along, you acclimate him. Maybe you rehabilitate him with the Cleveland Charge a little bit too if you're not able to find him minutes or he's just, not healthy. But also just try and utilize him better offensively. I think you and I both, our biggest frustration with Dylan last season is how JB Bickerstaff utilized him. I think you need to find him more looks from the perimeter, more looks that are easier for him in terms of just shots, because he was known as a shooter coming out of Belmont, and JB was using him more as a slasher and a creator in that role. And I'm like, yeah, I guess, but you're not playing to the strengths of this player here. Like, theoretically, Dylan Windler is supposed to be able to shoot the rock, and he did shoot it at times. He had a few career good moments with him where I'm like, okay, maybe the Cavs have something here, but he just, one, see if he's healthy. Two, bring him along slowly because you need to get him actual NBA minutes because there's only so much he can do in practice. And three, find better looks for him on the perimeter. Maybe that's hiring an offensive coordinator, but you need to better utilize a player like Dylan Windler who has the ability to stroke it from deep.
Yeah, I think with Dylan, I think there's a confidence issue too. I never felt like he looked really comfortable when he came back last year. Like, I never felt like he looked totally set right when he came back. There was just a real problem for him, and I don't know like enough about him personally to like say like how you fix it. I think that's just that's a test for JB. That is a test for JJ Outlaw. That is a test for the whole coaching staff and organization. Again, because like you're in a position as a franchise where like you didn't have the money to just go buy your upgrade. Someone was like tweeting. I saw some tweets like being like wondering, okay, if the Cavs are owned by more of like a Cleveland baseball team style ownership, where like they were maybe a little cheap, but they were really good at identifying prospects and developing them, could you be better off in some way? And I do think the Cavs, as they move into the next portion of their existence, that's the kind of thing you have to do. And maybe that means you hold on to like a guy like Windler, like to the end of his rookie contract, when maybe it's kind of clear he's not going to work out, which again, like late first round picks are often just not going to work out. It's just the reality of the draft. But I think, like, I kind of think like you have to try to figure him out. And I would expect the rotation at the beginning of the year to include him and Cedi, because you need minutes at the wing. I don't think you want to be playing Isaac like 35 minutes a night for like that right away, right? Like, you have these concerns. I kind of think you just got to like roll with it and, see if you can rebuild him. And I wonder if the Cleveland Charge could be an option, but I also think, okay, it's year 3. You maybe need him to play minutes. Like, I mean, could you send him down there just to like get some games under him? Like, is that a thing they would consider? I think that's interesting. I tend to think that in a more normal last 2 seasons for him, and I think this applies to Lamar Stevens. I think this applies to a lot of guys that were just like on the edge of the roster around last season because the Cavs needed bodies around in case like the team got hit with a bunch of COVID outbreaks. I tend to think that some G League time would have been good for a lot of these guys. I just think it is an underutilized resource, and I think like we're still a ways away from it being fully like actualized as like a real developmental thing. But I think it's a thing if the Cavs are thinking what is an advantage we can create, like that is one you have to, I think, fully embrace. And Windler in theory could have really benefited from that. But now I think for him, it's put up or shut up time. It differentiates him from Okoro and Osman because Cedi has already got his contract. Like he's already made a bunch of money. And like, if the NBA thing would work out for him after this season and next, whether it's in Cleveland or elsewhere, like you can probably go back to Turkey and like have and make a bunch of money playing back in Turkey or something like that. That wouldn't shock me if like that's what he wants to do. I think with Okoro, he's like obviously shown a lot as a rookie and like looks to be a cog of the team going forward, at least in some capacity. Windler, like, it's brutal, but it's just like it hasn't happened yet. And it has to happen now or it might not ever.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And like you said, it's put up or shut up time, and we just kind of have to see what kind of player we have at this point, and hopefully his body is just agreeable. And like you said, there is the mental aspect of just these injuries taking their constant tolls on him, where like setback after setback, and you start thinking, is this worth it at this point to like constantly build myself back up just to see myself get hurt again? So it's there's not much to say about Dylan Windler at this point. Like, it's just we have to see what you have with him, and if it doesn't, like, he should not be in the team's primary focus and plans going forward. Like, I know fans like to talk about the core four was the thing, and then Mobley ruined that nickname pretty quickly. So the core young foundation that the Cavs have built, Dylan Windler is not a part of those plans. He's either a trade asset or he is something the Cavs could try and rehabilitate and work with and maybe provide something with. But at this point, you just have to assume, because he isn't reliable health-wise to be there consistently, that he isn't just going to be there for the Cavs, and you hope for the best, but temper your expectations a little bit.
Evan, just give me a name here as we wrap up. Would you trust him or Lamar Stevens more next season?
Lamar Stevens. Three-point shooting-wise, it's going to be brutal for Lamar, but Lamar plays defense, and he's a big-bodied wing, and I think that intrigues me more right now than just Dylan Windler's ability to stay healthy. Actually, I have a last question for you. Who do you think the other two-way contract should go to? I think it should go to Matt Ryan at this point. If you want to keep looking at wings or shooters.
Yeah, it's Matt Ryan, but also technically they don't have anyone signed to a two-way right now because
Broderick not signed one.
So he was extended a qualifying offer, but they've not re-signed him to a two-way contract yet.
Huh. Okay. Well, I think Matt Ryan should be one of the two-way options. Maybe we'll talk more about that later on. We have some space to fill before training camp and have more stuff to sink our teeth into. But Matt Ryan did some intriguing things for me during Summer League, where I'm saying, okay, bring him into training camp, see if he can still shoot, let him play in the preseason, and if push comes to shove, sign him to a two-way and you keep him in Cleveland. Chandler Vaughan was originally my pick. I still have no idea what's going on with his injury, but if it's career-altering, it's a shame. But like a 6'7" point guard who can make a little bit, like, that intrigues the hell out of me, and I don't think you'd let that walk away so easily. But right now, Matt Ryan.
By the way, you know who told me they were a big you know who told me, I just gave it away, but you know who told me they were a big Chandler Vaughan fan? I wouldn't say big, but like said, yeah, he's like, I was asking about him, and he's like, yeah, I actually think he might be good. And I was like, oh, that sucks.
He had zero athleticism, and I think if he has an injury that impacts his athleticism, his NBA career is done.
Yeah. Interesting stuff here on the wing for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Again, 60-cent wing night. That's a wrap on that. We'll talk about some more stuff on Friday, including Colin Sexton extension chatter and sort of what that might look like, cap implications, all of that fun stuff here. Again, if you're watching us on YouTube, sorry for the little technical difficulty we had there. I figured it out as quickly as I could, and it will not hopefully happen again in the future. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. Evan, tell everyone what they should do to support us here on YouTube.
If you are a YouTube viewer / listener, thank you for checking us out. Hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and make sure you have all notifications turned on so you know when every episode goes live. We're doing this 3 days a week right now. Monday, Wednesday, Friday's the goal. 10 a.m. is usually when we'll post the episodes. If it's a little late, my bad. I'm not perfect, but please give us a like. Hit that like button, leave some comments, and we'll discuss with you using the Locked On Cavs account. But if you are an audio listener, like I said, 3 days a week, and for now 5 days a week, coming around training camp end of September or so. 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts are always appreciated. We'll give you more shout outs as time goes on. Spotify, check us out. Anywhere, check us out. We do Spotify green rooms every now and then. We're everywhere at this point. Like Chris said at the top, you can follow me on Twitter at @AmNotEvan. You can follow him on Twitter at CWM Writes. The Locked On Cavs podcast account is suspended until further notice, so you'll be hearing from us directly. But yeah, also, if we hit 1,000 subscribers by next Monday, I got a lot of stuff here. I will buy you a Frohio shirt from Breaking Tees. I should include an image of it, but it is a pretty nice t-shirt that Chris and I actually had a hand in designing. And yeah, if we hit 1,000, and maybe we'll lower the goal depending on things, but we're already almost at 100 on Monday.
We're 1,000? We're to the moon, buddy, to the moon.
I mean, some of our excursions are too lavish for the gram to begin with. But until next time, go Cavs.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody.